Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Monie Podcast. I am your girl Monie, and I hope you guys are enjoying the beautiful weather. Finally, summer has arrived. Well, I don't want to say that too quickly because this weather lately has been a little bit up and down, but nevertheless, I hope you guys are enjoying it, getting outside, enjoying the sunshine. It's a solo episode today, and I wanted to talk to you guys about, are we building lives we don't even enjoy? I recently celebrated a birthday, and it had me thinking a lot about my life, my legacy. What have I accomplished so far? And so I wanted to dive into that with you guys today just to have a discussion. You can talk to me in the comments, send me a personal note, but this conversation is gonna be deep. So got my notes stacked up, so just bear with me as I try to get through something that's been weighing heavily on my chest. So, are we living lives we don't even enjoy? Think about that for a second. We spend years chasing degrees, promotions, relationships, houses, money, recognition, and success. We work overtime. We sacrifice sleep. We delay vacation. We postpone joy. And then one day we wake up and realize we are exhausted. Not because we're lazy, but because we're failing. And because we've spent so much time building a life that looks good from the outside that we forgot to ask ourselves, do I actually enjoy this life? You know, sometimes we feel like we're failing, sometimes not because we're failing, but that question just pops up. Do I actually enjoy this life? So today, we're going to have a real conversation about success, busyness, fulfillment, and whether we're confused. Are we confused about our achievements? Are we confusing it with happiness? Let's get into it. Now, honestly, there's been days or seasons that I look at my own life, my work, and how I try to balance working, juggling the charity, my health, building this podcast. On paper, it looked productive, but there were moments when I had to stop and ask myself, Moni, are you building a life that you enjoy? Are you building a life that you're just simply surviving? Somewhere along the lines, something convinced me that, you know, I've been just keeping myself busy and I wasn't trying to build that life that I really wanted. It was just keep busy, keep going. And just being busy doesn't always mean the things that I'm doing are important. So when someone asks how we're doing, what do we say? Busy. Almost like it's a badge of honor. We're constantly moving. We're always on the go from here to there. Work, kids, family, all of that stuff. Always, always on the go. Bills, appointments, emails, side hustle. We have become experts, at managing our lives, but not necessarily enjoying them. I know because I've lived it. I have so many things going on. I wear multiple hats. I run a charity. I'm building this podcast. I'm helping my family. I'm trying to manage my health. So sometimes I find myself, checking off tasks all day long. And then I realize I never actually I never actually experienced the day. I just survive it. But did I enjoy it? That's a different question. Let's get into the next segment. Success. It isn't always fulfillment. We've seen stories of celebrities who seemingly have everything. For example, Robin Williams, he spent a lifetime making people laugh while privately struggling with depression. We've seen successful athletes, musicians, and entrepreneurs speak openly about burnout, anxiety, depression, despite, you know, reaping incredible levels of success. Why? Why do people do that? Because success and fulfillment are not the same. I'm here to tell you, it is not the same. It's not the same thing. You can have the job, the title, the house, the followers, the money, and still feel empty. Yep, still feel empty. Because fulfillment comes from alignment. Are we aligned with living a life that reflects our values? A life that includes joy, connection, purpose, and most importantly, rest. Most importantly, rest. And of course, meaning, not just achievement. So I thought maybe I was the only one feeling this way. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I needed a vacation. But then I started looking at the numbers. Statistics says that most people aren't thriving. According to Gallup 2026 State of the Global Workplace reports, only 34% of employees worldwide are considering switching careers. And they're also considered as thriving in life, while 56% are classified as struggling. I think maybe I fall in that bracket. I might be in that bracket. Yeah, definitely. Half the people around us are stressed at work, at home, in relationships, with finances. We've normalized stress so much that being calm almost feels unusual. Like, I have to repeat that. We have normalized stress so much that being calm almost feels unusual. Imagine spending most of your waking hours doing something you don't feel connected to. No wonder so many people feel stuck. And if you're listening and you feel stuck, I'm hoping that this episode will help you to feel unstuck and move into the right direction. 3 out of 4 people have experienced burnouts. That's not a personal problem, you know, anymore. That's a social problem. It's a societal problem. My next segment that I want to dive into, social media and how it's making it worse. Let's be honest, social media has convinced us that everyone is living better than you are. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I go on Instagram and I'm strolling and I see photos of people and I see content creators and they're traveling and just how they're living their life, I just feel like you got it good. You've made it, So it just creates that picture that people are living better off than you are. We see vacations, engagements, luxury cars, perfect families, business launches, new homes, and suddenly we're questioning our own lives. But what we don't see are the sacrifices. We don't see the debts, you know. We don't see the loneliness. We don't see the stress, the therapy sessions, the sleepless nights, and people that are posting highlights and things like that. They are going through it. These are not things that people floss online, you know. It's basically not reality. It's not real. And sometimes we're comparing our behind the scenes footage to someone else's movie trailer. And that, my friend, is dangerous. Oprah Winfrey, she has spoken publicly about success, how it's not automatically bringing fulfillment. Robin Williams, as I mentioned, whose life reminded many people that outward success doesn't necessarily reflect inner well being. What's my point of mentioning that? Basically, we've seen people with fame, money, awards, and influence still struggle. That tells me that fulfillment is deeper than achievement. It's much deeper than that. A lot of people are aiming and have these big dreams and goals and they're going after it. But inside, there's that gap, that emptiness as to, is this what I really want? And sometimes when you don't accomplish those goals and those things that you set out to accomplish, it brings you into that little train wreck. Your thoughts spiral out of control and you just start to feel unworthy, like you are not worthy to be here. But I just want to remind someone that you deserve to be here. You can create the life that you want, and you don't have to be stuck in that little area that you are right now. Next segment, I want to touch on a personal moment of mine. Recently, I've been asking myself some hard questions. My birthday came, and I thought, okay, now is the time for you to put everything in perspective. What do you want to do with your life? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? What do you want to accomplish? And then I started to ask myself, what have you accomplished? What do you have to show for yourself? And in all honesty, it made me quite sad. I started to think, I haven't really accomplished much. Yay, I wrote a book, I built a charity, but the level of these things, they are not where they ought to be. And I started to ask myself, why? Why is that? Is it I haven't been pushing myself hard enough to get to that standard, or I haven't been supported enough to be recognized in my field? So those personal moments caused me to ask myself some really hard questions. I started to ask myself, what else can I achieve? Is there anything else that I need to do? But I also asked myself, what brings me joy? And that's a question I want you to ask yourself right now. If you're listening, if you're watching, pause right now and ask yourself, what truly brings me joy? What makes me feel alive? What gives me peace? As I've gotten older, I realized something. Time is not guaranteed. In the last couple of months, I've been to more funerals than weddings, than birthday parties, more funerals. And at each funeral ceremony, everyone that gave a tribute, they always said life is short. And just being at the funeral, it caused them to make a shift in their own personal life to forgive someone or to propose to someone because it made them realize that life is short. And I started to think, I don't want to realize that life is short after a funeral or seeing someone suddenly just their life just end. I need to live life now. Now is the time. You don't want to wait. You don't want to wait for time to catch up on you and then you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, where's the time gone? What did I do with my life? So now more than ever, we need to tap into that source. We need to tap into that inner being. We need to start living life as if it's our last day. You know, good health is not a guaranteed. I've been looking at my own health. I've been told about my health, and I have been asked to prioritize my health because, as young as I think I am, there's certain things that have been brought to my attention, and before it flares up and get out of control, I'm like, okay, you know what? You got to nip that in the bud now. These are the things that contribute to you being able to live the best life that you want. Are you living your best life? I don't want to spend my entire life working towards a future and never, and that never arrives. I need to be intentional with what it is that I'm doing. I want to enjoy moments now, and I want to enjoy conversations. I want to be in the presence of individuals and leave feeling good, uplifted, motivated. That is what life is about, you know? So I want to encourage someone to really look into your life and ask yourself, are we building lives that we enjoy? Or are we building lives that we don't enjoy? And when you answer that question with yes or no, start to pinpoint what needs to shift, what needs to change so that I'm one step closer to living that life that I enjoy. You know, I come from the corporate world. I work for an employer, and oftentimes I find myself sometimes sitting at the desk just thinking about my passion. I sew, I write poetry, I have a charity, and sometimes I sit at the desk and I think of my next move. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be a nice fabric. I can get that fabric, I can make that dress. Ooh, I'd like to make a dress for this person or that person. My ideas, my passion just starts to just outpour. Sometimes I'm thinking my next guest, who do I want as my next guest on the podcast? Ooh, I'm gonna reach out to that person. And if you often feel like you're at work, someone else's job, they pay you to be there to do the work, and you're thinking about your passion, that's a deep sign that you are not living the life that you ought to live, that you are being pulled into the direction of your passion. So I want to encourage you to, when you do your 9 to 5, don't just go home and sleep. Go home and work on your dreams. Do your 6 to 12 and just bring your dreams, your passion to fruition because no one is gonna just hand it over to you. You have to work hard. You have to work and have that dream of yours accomplished. I want to enjoy the laughter. I want to enjoy the friendships. And touching on friendships right now is something that I find very fragile. Sometimes these friendships aren't lasting long as they used to. They're not built like how they used to. These friendships nowadays, I find you have to pour more into them. It's almost like a plant. You have to water that daily. So these friendships sometimes they can drain you. I'm grateful that I have friends that understand where I'm coming from and friends that don't need to always have that check-in. I have a friend that we can catch up where we left off. It could be like 2 weeks ago, and then I message her, and right away we just get back into a conversation. You need those friendships, the ones that don't take things personal and just be like, oh, now you want to talk to me and stuff like that. You need those friends that understand you and can be beside you. And of course, the purpose and the rest. Because what's the point of building a life if you're going to be too exhausted to enjoy it? So, again, you need to put your rest at the forefront. Lately, I've been putting my mental health way, 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 way at the top. There's been a lot of things that's been triggering. Work has been a trigger. A few toxic environments have been a trigger. And I just said, okay, you have to take yourself out of those environments. You have to take some time to reset, and I had to learn the hard way. My body just collapsed on me, just crashed. And I said, it shouldn't have taken it that long for you to see the signs, you know? Basically, I burnt out. I was just burnt out. And that is because I was putting my all into something else that did not bring me fulfillment. Again, the topic, are we living a life that brings us fulfillment? A life that brings us joy. And so just taking the time to reset has caused me to put things in order and to reorganize myself and to realize what direction I need to go into. I thought maybe I was the only one feeling this way. Maybe I was just tired, which technically I was. I was exhausted. Maybe I needed a vacation. We all need one of those. But then I started looking at the numbers. So think about that for a sec. More than half of people are not thriving. Okay? They're getting through life. They're paying bills. They're just showing up. They're just functioning at a high level. But they're not necessarily thriving. You know those individuals when you ask them, how are you doing? Nah, I'm here. I'm surviving. It could be worse. Those are some of the individuals that there's something deeper going on underneath it all. They're just thriving. They're just in that moment, just trying to get through it. The next segment I want to get into is for my listeners and those who are watching. I want you to think about these questions. When was the last time you did something purely, you know, maybe because it brought you joy? Something out of maybe not spontaneous. What's the word? All right. Basically something that brought you joy that you just did out of the blue. All right? I want you to ask yourself that. And what are you chasing right now? Think about it. What are you chasing right now? And why are you chasing that? If you achieved all of your current goals, like if you achieve all of them, let's say you achieve all of your goals tomorrow, would you actually be happier? I gotta ask myself that. If I achieved all of my goals for tomorrow and say, all right, I'm nice, I achieved everything, I feel I would be a little bit happy. I'd be like, all right, check marked everything, I'm nice, you know? Or would you simply just move the finish line again? Would I just say, okay, check mark, let's continue and do something else. Is that something that you, my listeners, would do? Would you move the finish line? And here's the biggest question. If your life looked exactly the same 5 years from now, would you be excited? Or would you feel trapped? Now, that's a big one. That's something you really have to dissect and don't answer quickly. Would you be excited? Again, I looked at my life and I said, in 5 years, these are the things that I want to accomplish. This is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And when I started to write those goals, I felt excited. I felt like I can do it. It's going to happen. So I have to align myself to make those things happen instead of just constantly just being in that survival mode or just thriving mode. I got to be intentional with what I'm doing and where I'm going and the results that I want. So, if you answer these questions, if your answer is no, if you answered and your answer was no, maybe it's time to make some changes. All right? I hope some of the things that I said resonated with you, and I hope you take the time to evaluate your life, where you are, where you want to go, what you're doing, and what you want to do. Because now more than ever, we have to be intentional with our lives, with what we're doing and our time. Sometimes I wake up so early and I said, yes, I woke up early. I'm going to get so much done today. And time just catches up on me. I'm there thinking I found, there's 24 hours in a day. I found the 25th. Nope, it's 24. So I've just learned to become intentional with everything that I'm doing and every words that I say and be more mindful of my time, because again, life is short, life is precious. And now is the time for me and you to be in alignment so that we are living the life that we want to live. And we are not just here, just taking up space. I think back and think, if I do leave and when I do leave this world, what will people have to remember of me? Will I leave my mark? Will there be something to show that I was here? And I want you to think about that as well. This brings me to a segment of our show called Good Things Are Coming. This is the segment of the show where I like to leave my listeners and my viewers with a positive affirmation to encourage you to get through the week and to uplift you. So, good things are coming because you're learning that success isn't just about what you build. It's about what you experience. It's about peace. It's about purpose. It's about joy. Thank you so much for spending the time with me, and I hope this episode resonated with you and it spoke to you. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Send me a personal message. Let me know, are you building a life that you truly enjoy? Again, enjoy the wonderful weather. Go out, explore, connect with that friend, have lunch, that dinner date. Start to pour into your passion and not just your 9 to 5. Now is the time for us to live that life that we so deserve. Until next time, bye for now.